Good evening, everyone. Let's bow in. So, welcome once again to the course entitled The Buddhist Path of Awakening. And we are following the presentation by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, mostly from the Profound Treasury of the Ocean of Dharma, the 3-volume work that is a compilation, a distillation of the talks that he gave over a period of about 15 years at seminary every year to a group of 150 to 250 plus students, usually always at some remote location. And but tonight we're going to use a little different source material, following along in the same progression of teachings. But we're using Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, that book, particularly the chapter entitled Shunyata. As well, we'll be chanting the Heart Sutra, which is what this chapter is in part about. The doctrine of Shunyata is the subject of the Heart Sutra. And so we'll be discussing all of this. Let's start by simply taking a good posture and bringing our minds into this present moment, right now, here and now. You are aware of whatever is presenting itself to your eyes, these words that are presenting themselves to your ears. Your awareness is clear, simple, without preconception, without judgment, just pure awareness. Judgment and preconception may come and go, but they're just momentary events that pass. And meanwhile, this ongoing awareness of your senses and also mental events is just here. It changes continuously, but it's very clear. You might have a thought about it, like, what does this mean? Or what am I doing? Or is this good or is this bad? But this awareness, this simple, clear awareness that we can come back to. Thoughts may happen, but then they go away, and this awareness never ends. This is the stuff of Shunyata. Shunyata means emptiness. Shunya means void or empty, and ta is a nominative, so it means emptiness or voidness. And what it's empty of is our preconceptions, our labels, our value judgments, our thoughts about. These things come and go, definitely. But emptiness is always there. The phenomenal world, your mental events, they continue uninterrupted, and you are uninterruptedly aware. If you go off on a tangent and think about something, then it disappears and you're back. If in coming back you think, gee, I was gone for a while, that's just a thought. and then it's gone. And there's this. So I'm pointing this out to you. This is the very stuff of Shunyata. It's empty because fundamentally it doesn't need our comments about it. It just goes on. All these sights and sounds, the five senses, even mental events, they just arise and pass away in the moment. And they have no true existence. They're just a constant presentation, like clouds drifting across the sky. They just constantly arise and disappear. None of this has any true being. That's just another label we affix to it. Any physical sensation, wiping your nose, smiling, all of it, hearing, feeling your body, feeling the temperature of the room, all of these things are so transitory. They come and go like winds. This is what Shunyata is about. It's saying that reality doesn't need our comments. It's just continually happening, unstoppably. Having said that, I thought we would start by chanting the Heart Sutra. Normally this is done monosyllabically. Well, in our tradition, Trungpa Rinpoche liked the way the Japanese did it, and they did it monosyllabically. But it's also done not monosyllabically. And let's do it that way tonight. I'm going to lead it, and you can follow along with me. Here it is. The sutra. The sutra is a dialogue between the Buddha and his students. That's what sutra means. The Buddha is very little present in this particular dialogue, but he's here. And also two of his key students, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, he represents compassion, and the Arhat, that means the Hinayana practitioner, Shariputra, who represents prajna, or scientific knowledge. So this is a conversation between the three of them. Primarily you are hearing Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra. So we'll just start. We'll read through it. And you can follow along with me. I'll chant this title alone. That's usually the way it's done. And then I'll chant Thus Have I Heard, and you join in after that. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, How should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. That means that they're not existent. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. Sorry, we've got somebody speaking who is not muted. And I'm going to mute everybody again, just because it's out of sync. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Svaha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Okay. So, this chapter, a lot of people think it's one of the best short explications of the doctrine of Shunyata that exists. And it's really the voice of Trungpa Rinpoche although it took a lot of going back and forth with him and students, asking questions to get it to this point. So we'll just start in. I want to say one thing. As students, we come to this path having doubts about ourselves. We might, at some point, become convinced of the truth of these teachings, and then we wonder if we can realize them. It is a quality of these teachings, or a feature, that you don't achieve them. You don't perfect them. They are already there in you. These teachings are a description of what we already are. We've just become confused and lost track of it. And if we think, as we understand these teachings, that we can't realize them, that is an error, because we never realize them. They're already there inside of us. The description of Shunyata, of prajna, of compassion, is what in fact we really are. It has only been clouded over by self-doubt, fear, unhappiness, wishing things were otherwise. When these mental events, you might say, are cleared away, all of this is here already in us. It's not something we have to build or achieve or create. It's something that is revealed as we peel away the onion of neurosis, of self-doubt, of self-hatred. So if one thinks, I'm not this, I can never be this, this is beyond me, this is not what I am now, maybe someday, that's just self-doubt, a temporary condition. Trungpa Rinpoche stressed over and over again the teaching of hopelessness, that we should embrace hopelessness. Now, that doesn't mean despair, this hopelessness. This is literal hopelessness, to be without hope. And that doesn't mean then that we're despairing. Now, when you despair, you're thinking, oh, I'll never get it. And you're still hoping. And that has to be given up. Despair isn't just another form, a perverse and painful form of hope. True hopelessness means that we're giving up dreams about what might be. And instead, we are coming into an appreciation and awareness of what is now. The only time we ever have. Now. The rest of it is dream. So when we are exhorted by Trungpa Rinpoche and others to give up hope, we are not being exhorted to despair, to weep and wail, to say, oh, it's how terrible it is. We're being quite the reverse. We're being exhorted to free ourselves from that wish, that hope that things might be in a way different than we experience in the moment. It might be according to some imagination that we've concocted or that we've been told about the future. And that is what we are giving up. And that is what is necessary to give up in order to come into this teaching of emptiness, the Heart Sutra. This Heart Sutra is a description of who and what we are now. And if we think that we're not, that's just a habit, a nasty, pernicious habit. So he starts this chapter. We're going to go into it. He says, cutting through our conceptualized versions of the world with the sword of prajna. Prajna is clear seeing, and it's a sword. Manjushri wields this sword. Manjushri is the bodhisattva of wisdom of prajna. Cutting through our conceptual versions of the world with the sword of prajna, we discover shunyata, the absence of duality and conceptualization. We don't need thought right now. You're completely aware in this moment of this screen, of these words. Thought about it is just extra. So we cut through the duality of I and other, which is just another thought. We cut through the duality of thoughts about something, and we are just here experiencing this raw data, the image, the sounds, the sensation of your bottom on the chair, the temperature of the room, now that I mention it. All these things and more are revealed when we cut through duality. Duality is the complication of I and other. It's just another dream, another thought. I'm here, you're there, what are we going to do together? It's like a little song. And then it goes, it evaporates, and there's just this. And any dream of true existence of anything, because it's just a dream. All of this is just a constant arising and appearing. And he says the best known of the Buddha's teachings on this subject is in the Heart Sutra, the Prajna Paramita Hridaya. Hridaya means heart, and Prajna is what we're talking about, this intelligence that cuts through concept and sees things nakedly. And Paramita means that it's a transcendent virtue. It means it is transcending confusion. That's what paramita means. Cutting through confusion. Confusion of I and other. Confusion of good and bad. Confusion of hope and fear. And he creates a situation, the Buddha does, in which Avalokiteshvara, who represents compassion and skillful means, because he's skillful, he's a skillful teacher, was compelled to awaken to Shunyata by Shariputra, who represents the overwhelming force of prajna, of intelligence, the scientific person, precise knowledge, which is like, you can see this computer screen, precision with precision. You can hear these words with precision. That's the prajna. Prajna is only obscured when you start thinking, is this good or is this bad? Do I understand this or do I not understand this? So this is a teaching which is not about any kind of blind faith or belief. It's about your immediate experience right now. So he says, thus have I heard, once the Blessed One, that's the Buddha, was dwelling in Rajagriha. That's an actual place in India. It's north of Bodh Gaya, where he achieved enlightenment. Dwelling in Rajagriha on the Vulture Peak Mountain. That's a bump. It's like a little mountain. With his sangha of monks and of arhats, Hinayana practitioners, and bodhisattvas. He says that Avalokiteshvara, I should have a copy of the Heart Sutra in front of me. Sorry, give me a second here. You want me to bring it up? Well, then I won't be able to see anybody. Yeah, I'd like you to bring it up, actually. Uh-huh. Wait a minute, I think I can do this. I can print this. Nope. All right, yeah, here we go. Thanks, Mary. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, I'm sorry, everybody. No problem. Okay. How should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Noble family is the Arya family, and it's the family of the Buddhists. Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, we all know what a Bodhisattva is. It's an awakened being, and Mahasattva means great being, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family, who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Empty of nature means they don't exist. They have no true existence, and we can define what that means, and I have done that many times in this course. But the simplest thing is to just understand that all of this that we're in the midst of is a constant appearing and disappearing, and has no ongoing true existence. Hold on a minute. So it's empty of nature. It has no existence. It's completely a part of a matrix that is arising in the moment, and it has no parts. It's a constant flowing. And that's what it means to be empty of nature. And he says, form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. Now, form, the idea is the way we fall into confusion continuously is that we're sitting here in the middle of this space in which everything is flowing, a constant changing flowing. When nothing inheres, everything is utterly temporary. You can't even point to what it was that was temporary. It's already gone. And yet suddenly, in the midst of all this, there appears a figure against a ground. It's as though you say, oh, there's John. There's whoever, there's my computer. And a form appears and everything else recedes into background. This is the way form is born. And that form implies the existence of a perceiver of it here. And suddenly there's I. I am the perceiver of that form, that figure against the ground, my computer, that person that I'm looking at. And if I'm here, what's our relationship? And the whole thing starts to evolve into a very complicated structure, which is described in the 5 skandhas: form, perception, formation, consciousness, form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness. These are the 5 skandhas, the 5 constituents of ego. And they all start by in the middle of this fluid, spacious, ever-changing presentation of phenomena, that suddenly something emerges as important. There's my gong. there's dinner on the table. And that implies the existence of a perceiver here. And what's my relationship with that object? Well, I'm going to eat dinner. That'll be fun. And we get into all kinds of thoughts about it. So what he's saying is he's starting with form, the very form. And he's saying form is emptiness. What does emptiness mean? It means it has no true existence. We give it existence as an act, a temporary act. We say, oh yeah, there's my computer, there's dinner, there's John, there's whatever, there's Frank, there's Luann. So we give it existence, but it has no true existence. It's just a momentary separating out. And so it's empty. So form is emptiness. It's empty of any true being. It's empty of any designation we may put on it. It's just what it is. You can slap labels on it. You can say it's dinner, it's a table, it's a person. But meanwhile, it's being just what it is. It's empty of those labels. They're just temporary labels that we're scotch taping onto them for a moment. So form is emptiness. It's utterly transient, substanceless, a constant appearance in the moment. But emptiness also is form. And what that means is if you make a philosophy out of this, you've gotten lost in another conceptual formula. Don't do it. You could get lost in the philosophy of emptiness, of Shunyata. So emptiness itself is another form. It's another existent, and it's another illusion, that philosophy. So emptiness is no other than form, and form is no other than emptiness. And what's that saying is that things are just exactly what they are. You don't need a philosophy to understand them. You don't need a set of labels and judgments. We can just live here in this world, constantly coming back from dream, because we fall into dream. And when we come back from dream, we don't berate ourselves, that's another dream. We're constantly coming back, really coming back. Thus Shariputra says, in the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Now, this is because these are the 5 skandhas, and they're the 5 ways that, the 5 steps in which ego is formed. And what he's addressing here, Avalokiteshvara, is the Hinayana idea that, yes, there is no such thing as a self, but there are things out there. There are rocks and trees and stars and sounds. That's what the Hinayanists believed. These were called dharmas. Dharma here means a true existent. And what Avalokiteshvara is saying is, and so for instance, the body is made up of all kinds of dharmas, dharmas of color, dharmas of sensation, of flesh, of bone, of muscle, of molecules, all that stuff. And what he's saying is that these are just names to passing appearances that come to us in the moment. So he's saying all dharmas, all these sort of atoms that the Hinayanists think go to make up the world, are emptiness. There are no characteristics, because as soon as you see blue, well, your eye is changing and now you're seeing red. There is no birth or no cessation, because there's nothing to be born or to cease. There's just this constant movie that we're in. There is no impurity and no purity. That is a reference to the idea that some things will take you further on the path and some things will impede your path. But that's not true. You just let go of all that stuff and you're right here. There is no decrease and no increase, because there's nothing to exist. Then you can't have things increasing. There's just this constant television screen that we're living in the middle of. Quite beautiful, much better than a TV screen. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, and now the 5 skandhas. No feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. Another way of organizing these dharmas, one way of organizing them was you organize them into the 5 skandhas. And in the 5 skandhas, there are 75 dharmas, by the way, 75 different existence that the Hinayanists believed in, this particular school that's being addressed here. And one way of organizing them is you organize them into an explanation of how we believe in a self. That's the 5 skandhas. Another way is you can organize them into an explanation of perception. And in perception, there is an I, there's the mind that looks through the I, and there's the object of the I, these 3 things. And you have them for the nose, smell, the mouth, taste, the ear, sound, and the body, sensation, as well as the mind itself. So you have 6 different organs, the mind, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, and you have the mind that sees through these things as well as the object. This gives you 18 different categories. So for instance, again, just to make it clear, let's take one of them, seeing. You have the mind that looks through the organ of the eye and sees the visual object. That's 3. Multiply that times the 6 organs, the 5 senses, and the mind itself, and you get 18. These are called the ayatanas. And he goes through these, and they're also sometimes organized into a different system. Well, they're called the dhatus. And they're sometimes organized into a different system where there are only 12. So he says, but altogether there are 18. So he says, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. These are the organs. No sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu. And these are the organs and their objects. No mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu, up to no mind dhatu. No dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance. And then we'll stop there at the dhatus. He's denying the existence of anything that can be seen or perceived. According to the Sarvastivadin scheme, I sent you the list of the Sarvastivadin dharmas. There are 11 mental dharmas, physical dharmas. 10 are simply the 5 sense organs and their objects. And then there's this ringer in there, which I've never understood and nobody really seems to understand, avijñapti, it's called. And then there are the purely mental events, dharmas, which the Hinayanists said these things truly exist. And then there are 3 things which are dharmas, which are neither mental nor physical, things like nirvana, which is not mental or physical, space, and I forget what the third one is. And altogether you get 75 different things that exist, according to the Hinayanists, which is kind of the way we think of the world. We think of it in terms of what exists, and you can come up with your own list. And people, believe me, there's a guy named there was a fellow named Steve Goodman, he's passed now, and he was a excellent Buddhist teacher, and he used to sit people down, and they'd come up with their list of dharmas, their list of existent things. And he's saying that none of this exists. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorant, and then we get to this. So what he's saying is that all of this stuff that we thought were true existence, because you see the dharmas actually exist. They don't exist for long. They exist for about a 60th of a second. They come into being, they have 3 moments, the dharmas. They appear, they endure, and they die. And this takes about a 60th of a second, according to the Hinayana doctrine. And what Avalokiteshvara is saying is, it's a myth. It's just another false belief. Nothing endures, even for an instant. No electrons, no protons, no quarks, nothing. It's all this appearing. And so then we go to no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. And what he's going through here is another arrangement of these dharmas, which was the 12 nidanas, which started with ignorance and went through 12 stages to old age and death. Old age was the 11th, death is the 12th. Ignorance was the first. And he's saying that this arrangement of these dharmas has no true existence either. It's just a movie script. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path. It's the same thing again. There is no one to suffer. There is no cessation of suffering. There is only this. And, the suffering that he's talking about, of course, is the wishing that things were otherwise, the hope. And what is happening here is hope is being given up with all of its attendant suffering. Still, there is the suffering of getting stabbed in the leg, and the pain that happens with that. But that's trivial compared to what we torture ourselves with, what drives us mad, wishing things were different. And that, he's saying, goes. So there is no suffering, no origin of suffering in that sense, no cessation of suffering, no path to get rid of that, no wisdom to get rid of that, no attainment and no non-attainment, because we are already there. This is the teaching of the Mahayana. And then our meditation practice is to constantly come back to already being there, here, now. To give up hope that someday we'll get enlightened. And to come back to this, our fundamental nature, which is awake, enlightened. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, how brave is that? How fierce is that? No attainment. Screw attainment. They abide by means of prajnaparamita. They abide by means of clear seeing things as they are in this present moment. Since there is no obscuration of mind, that's the hope. That's what Rinpoche called hope. There is no fear. Because when you've got hope, you've got fear. You've got the fear that your hope will never be realized. You've got the fear that things are going to stay in this terrible place and you'll never get what you're hoping for. I remember Rinpoche saying, looking out at us, and he'd say, please give up hope. Please give up hope. Things are as bad as you think they are. He'd say this over and over. So the bodhisattvas transcend falsity. The falsity is that hopefulness, that wishing things were otherwise, the constant judgment of good and bad, which is all about achieving some better state. He says, therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, because they're giving up any idea of attainment, they're coming back to this. They abide by means of prajnaparamita, that clear seeing. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. There is no fear because there's no hope. Hope and fear go together. Get rid of one, you got rid of the other. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana, which is not some kind of bliss, it's the here and now. All the Buddhas of the three times, past, present, and future, by means of prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. And what this means is coming back to this. Therefore, the great mantra of prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, thank you, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Now I'm going to stop here. I want to go back to the notes. So he says, we'll come back to the mantra. We have to actually feel and understand things as they are. Now, right here, in this moment. There's no other time but this. The isness of things and their insubstantiality, that they are just appearances arising and passing away in the moment. So first we wipe away all our heavy preconceptions, our thinking, someday I'm going to get enlightened and then I'll become a Buddha and I'll understand all this profundity. Wipe that away. And then the subtleties, words such as empty, we wipe them away, leaving us nowhere, completely with what is, he says. Finally, we come to now I'm going to skip that. This is a bright and vivid world without I and other, which are names we give to the two poles that we create. And so we come back to form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. These things, everything, emptiness and all of these things are in complete union. We see that looking for beauty or philosophical meaning to life is merely a way of justifying ourselves to keep the neurotic game of I and other going. Finally, we come down to earth. We see things as they are. This is not dwelling on anything, on some answer or happy place. Giving that up might be a difficult shock. I mean, the Arhats had heart attacks, right? Some of them. It is not a higher state of consciousness. It is sane, true, simply what is. The Shunyata principle involves not dwelling on anything, being suspended nowhere with what is. If we see things as they are, we do not have to interpret or analyze them further. We do not need to try to understand them by imposing spiritual experience or philosophical ideas upon them. So, absent these philosophical ideas and interpretations, what do we say about this? Well, the Madhyamikans say you can't say anything. The Madhyamika, the middle way school, they say they just talk about ta, as it is. This is it, as it is. Suchness, here it is. Then he goes through a thing about false beliefs. He talks about theism, nihilism, both of them are false. They're just beliefs that we conjure up to try and keep I alive. And then he talks about the Hinayana atomism or impermanence, which I've already discussed. The idea that everything is made up of parts that go together, which have true existence, and he denies that too. Because there's nothing that has true existence. Everything is just this constant flux. He says that, just wishful thinking. And he talks about belief in anything is simply a way of labeling what we think is a mystery, which is hopefulness. That's what beliefs are. They're all about hope. The hope that we can concretize, understand, fix something in its place. And then he talks about Yogacara, and I'm not going to go into that here. Yogacara was a school of Buddhism that got close, but it had some fundamental flaws. It was the idea that everything is mind, and it was called the mind-only school, Chitta Mantra. And I don't think it's worth our time tonight to go into Yogacara. So Shunyata is clarity, which transcends conceptual padding and unnecessary confusions. and unnecessary confusions. We have these confusions. They're unnecessary. We've already got it. It's our core. It's here. It's this clarity that we can't stop. We are constantly seeing reality. It's just that we overlay it with confusions, with doubt, with hope and fear. We take that away and we just come back to this clear seeing. The world becomes much more vivid because all of those hopes and fears and doubts and they obscure it. They're like a veil. They're like wearing sunglasses. So we can see the world much more vividly. And we'll be coming to that in these teachings too. The idea of vividness, we haven't gotten to that yet. We're just talking about emptiness, empty of confusion, empty of preconception. He says, to get to Shunyata, it is necessary to start with the narrow Hinayana path of technique and discipline. And then at some point, the technique falls away. And really, that's what we've been talking about, hopefully experiencing tonight, the falling away of technique of any kind. And when the technique falls away, all that's left is this clear awareness through the senses and the mind. So we're learning to undo ego. And eventually we get to voidness or emptiness, space, the absence of all conceptual attitudes. And I'm just going to read some things from this chapter here. This is to conclude. He says, the Heart Sutra starts by describing true cognition, the meditative state, and ends with the mantra. This is because in the beginning we must develop a confidence in our innate understanding, clearing out all preconceptions, nihilism, eternalism. All beliefs have to be cut through. All hope has to be cut through. And when a person is fully unclothed, fully unmasked, completely naked, completely opened, at that very moment, that person sees the power of the word, the jewel shining in its brightness, the energetic living quality of openness, the living quality of surrender. Surrender, the living quality of renunciation. What are we surrendering? We're surrendering our hopes and fears, our egotism, our pride, that I am who I am. And I'm not going to be satisfied until I really get what I'm hoping for. That has to be surrendered. And that's renunciation. That's the true meaning of renunciation. He says renunciation in this instance is not just throwing away, but having thrown everything away, we begin to feel the living quality of peace. And this particular peace is not feeble peace, feeble openness, but it has a strong character, an invincible quality, an unshakable quality, because it admits no gaps of hypocrisy. And then finally, I'm just going to read the ending of this chapter. Complete openness, which is really giving away all of our thoughts of self, preconceptions of hope and fear. That's what ego really is. Ego is a constant hope. It keeps I alive. I'm hoping that someday I will, blah, blah, blah. So complete openness is giving that up, is complete victory, because we do not fear. We do not try to defend ourselves at all. Therefore, this is a great mantra, the mantra that it closes with. One should have thought that instead of saying Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisaha, This mantra would be saying something about Shunyata, Om Shunyata, Maha Shunyata, or something of the sort. Instead, it says Gate Gate, gone, gone, gone beyond, completely gone. This is much stronger than saying Shunyata, because the word Shunyata might imply a philosophical interpretation, that we're now philosophers of Shunyata. Instead of formulating something philosophical, this mantra exposes that which lies beyond philosophy. Therefore, it is Gate Gate, gone, given up, got rid of, opened. The first Gate is rid of the veil of conflicting emotions. Conflicting emotions are belief in I, because when you believe in I, you're constantly caught in this web of conflicting emotions, which is very painful. So the first Gate is giving up that. The second Gate represents the veil of primitive beliefs about reality. What a great name. He didn't make that up, by the way. This is standard doctrine. Primitive beliefs about reality. This is the belief that things actually have a true existence. It's primitive. It's absolutely primitive, Neanderthal. That we should believe that these things exist and then formulate all these complex stories involving me and them and all these existence. So the second Gate is giving up these primitive beliefs about reality. We're entering a much more sophisticated, beautiful, fluid, gorgeous world. He says, lost my place. Yeah, the second veil represents the veil of primitive beliefs about reality. That is, the first Gate represents the idea that form is empty, stripped of concept, and the second Gate refers to the emptiness as form. That means we're not going to get caught in a philosophy of Shunyata either. Then the next word of the mantra is Paragate, gone beyond, completely exposed. Now form is form, Paragate, and it is not only that form is form, but emptiness is emptiness. Parasamgate, meaning really, really gone beyond, completely gone beyond. Bodhi, awake, that's what Bodhi means, completely awake. The meaning is given up, completely unmasked, naked, completely open. Svaha, so be it. That's what Svaha means. Hurrah, eureka. Gone, gone, gone beyond, completely exposed, awake, so be it. That's it. That's that chapter. What a terrific chapter. So we can have a discussion. We go into gallery view, maybe?
That's on your end. I took
I
your
did it.
spotlight off. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I did it. You're laughing, Christy.
I'm laughing because I feel like I have the stupidest question.
Oh, good.
Just to get
Good.
started. All right, so I guess, so Buddhists go to just such lengths to prove that things don't exist, just immense lengths. And why would you say that is?
This only becomes more intense the further down you go the path. The non-existence of things. And it's because there are different worlds that we can live in. We can live in the world of confusion, of I and other, in which things exist. And in fact, we've fallen into that world temporarily. Or we can awaken to the true world. And in that world, things don't exist. And it's a very different way to be. It's a very magical, real world. And there are untold numbers of beings inhabiting that world. We just happen to have gotten stuck in this dream. And we're finding our way out of it.
Yeah, I'd like to be in that other world, I think.
You can do it. And that's the interesting thing. You see, once you begin to understand this point, that in fact, it's what we actually are, that we've just gotten lost in confused dreams, then it's the easiest thing, and the path becomes very different. It's not a path of making yourself better or of improving things at all. It's a path of coming back again and again to what is already here. They call it taking fruition as the path. Fruition is, this is it. We take that as the path. And how do we take that as the path? By saying, oh yeah, I was dreaming. Look, here's the world. Here's my legs. Here's Christy. Here's this computer screen. Here's the sound of this voice. We come back to what was here all along. We don't have to change it. We don't have to improve it. We don't have to make it better. It was already here. That we take the fruition as the path, and that fruition is to come back to now. Come back to this. And in this world, it's a magical world compared to the one that we have been dwelling in, this world of confusion. And in this world, things don't exist in the way we thought they did. We thought that things actually had ongoing, existence. No, there's just this constant presentation, constant arising of the five senses and mind, mental events, vividly, beautifully. And we can dance with that. We can play with that. We can fall in love with that. And this is what Tantra is all about. Once we begin to inhabit that world, then it's all about, they call it play, rolpa, dance, love, sukha, bliss. Rinpoche used to talk about cosmic orgasm. That happens at some stage of the path.
Barbara has something, I think.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hear you. Barbara, wherever you may
Okay.
be.
Yeah, here I am.
There you are.
So, John, this is what I think you said, but I might not have it exactly right. When you let everything go, you wouldn't expect the word is the first thing you see. Is that what you said?
The word is the first thing you what?
You wouldn't expect the word is the first thing you see.
See.
Yeah. Is that what you said?
I don't think so, man. I don't know. I'm not sure. How do you see a word?
He's talking about in the very beginning, after ignorance. I think that's what She must have.
Oh. Are you talking about the falling into ego, falling into confusion?
Um,
We
no, it was actually in the last 5 minutes of your talk, not in the beginning. Well, yeah, I wasn't sure if I got that right. So, and I didn't quite understand it. So I just thought it was worth asking.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I think, Mark, did you have something?
I was just, there's the whole thing with things existing and not existing. And I love the fact that we say, oh, don't go down the nihilist path. And yet we could sit here for 6 hours and say, nothing exists. And it's like, but don't be a nihilist. And I'm not, and I do, but I do think it's what you said, that things don't exist the way we think they do. That's ultimately it. And
Yeah, I mean, there's a definition that is being of existence. It's in the sutra. It says that nothing has any own being. Own being is an English translation of the word svabhava, which people also translate as existence. And svabhava has 3 qualities. I said this before. One is that it endures when something has svabhava, when it exists, it endures over time. I don't care if it's a short time, like a 60th of a second, or forever, years, 80 years. And what they're saying is nothing endures even for a nanosecond.
Mhm.
There's just this constant birth and death in which nothing that you can point to is born or dies because it's already gone. And then the second thing is that things exist independently, but nothing exists independently. Look at this screen. All of us, we're a constant matrix that is changing instant by instant. We're constantly arising independence on everything else. And the third quality that's being denied is that things are unitary, but we're not unitary. There is no one thing that you can find. Everything is parts. Everything is made up of everything else. It's constantly morphing into everything else. And that is what is being denied by svabhava when they deny existence. And what they're saying is, and that's the denial. Now you could paint the picture of what it looks like on a positive side. That was the negative side. On a positive side, we are living in a constantly fluxing, changing environment, world, whatever you want to call it, a matrix, which is arising and passing away every nanosecond, if there were a nanosecond. And that this arising and passing away, you can't hold it because it's already gone.
right.
And it's also extraordinarily beautiful and meaningful. It's continually, like these words, telling us things about itself.
You can go with it in the moment.
Yes,
You just can't hold it.
you can't hold it, but you can be with it, and it's meaningful, it's beautiful, it's resonant, and then finally, the third main quality of it is that it is full, chock-a-block, with whatever you want to call this. The term in Tibetan is tukje or ningje, and what it usually is translated as is either compassion or love. Sometimes they talk about it as being bliss, and then they use another term. So all of this is empty of own being, of those 3 qualities, and yet it's constantly communicative, vividly, beautifully, powerfully communicative, and it's full of heart. That's the Ningje. Ningje means noble heart.
Mhm.
Tukche is an honorific version of that. And that's one of the hardest things to communicate. When that Tukche, that Ningje, takes form, as great love, embodiments of love, and also it takes form as these teachings and the teachers who communicate it, because they're doing it out of great compassion and love for sentient beings. And this is the world that we're being enjoined to enter. And we're being enjoined to leave this false world of self-aggrandizement, of I, me, and mine, of my hope, my fear, all of that selfishness and sorrow.
Samsara.
Samsara.
Thank you.
And it's so available to us. Every time we come back, this is the practice. This is what meditation really is. It's not some mental exercise. That's what we have to get beyond. It's the coming back to awareness. That is meditation. That's what Vipassana is about.
Right.
3 people have their hands up.
Okay, 3 people. Yes, we've got Dan, and then Steve, and then Lodra.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I just had a reaction to Christy's question, about why, we, whoever goes to such extents to prove this. I mean, look at the world just in the last 3 days about what happens when we think things exist. We've got the trial of 2 guys, one in Georgia, one in Wisconsin. We have an SUV running into people in Wisconsin. We've got a disappeared teenage Chinese tennis player, right? These are all based on beliefs in that things exist in a certain way, right? And this is just a very small but gross example. And it's, we go to such extent because it causes so much suffering, causes so much suffering. And there was something that just popped out at me from the reading of the Heart Sutra. When Shariputra asks, how does a son or daughter, I've heard it translated as just how does a child learn, but it's not how does a son learn, right? It's not how does a daughter learn. It's a son and daughter learn. And this is in the year, 600? And they're already talking in all-inclusive, words, as opposed to how we talk about things and how certain religions talk about things, about men should do this, women should do this, and this is just, it's open. And anyway, it just struck me. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Yes. If everything is emptiness, I'm wondering who or what or how, where does the compassion and love and joy come from?
It's not a causal situation. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. Really what's being described here, what I was referencing, were what are called the 3 bodies of the Buddha, which are really the 3 aspects, one way of describing reality, which has 3 aspects. The first is what's called the Dharma body of the Buddha, the Dharma Kaya. Kaya means body. And the Dharma body of the Buddha, the truth body of the Buddha, is all about the fact that nothing has any true existence. Nothing has any svabhava. Everything is constantly arising and passing away without any without any true existence in the way, that those three qualities. The second body of the Buddha is called the Sambhogakaya. And it's usually translated, it's hard to translate Sambhoga. It's usually translated as the enjoyment body of the Buddha. And what it's saying is that while nothing has any true existence, yet things appear, right? This gesture, these words. And as they appear and disappear, they communicate. So you could call it the communication body of the Buddha. That everything that appears and disappears, all these phenomena, including your mental events, as they come into being, pass out of being, they're communicating. In fact, it's the very appearance and disappearance that allows the communication. If they weren't disappearing as they appeared, they couldn't communicate because they'd be frozen. They'd be just one solid, ongoing, unchanging thing. But it's the very fact that they have no true existence that allows them to communicate. And that's the enjoyment body of the Buddha, the Sambhogakaya body of the Buddha. And in the Sambhogakaya, there are beings, not like you and me, who are pure communication, pure energy, pure, and they're enlightened. They're enlightened. They're not so much enlightened as they are beyond enlightenment and unenlightenment. They come into being. They are real. And you can contact them if you wish, they say. But even beyond that, just this world we live in is full of Sambhogakaya. Because as things arise and pass away, they're communicating. Finally, the third body of the Buddha is the compassion body of the Buddha. And that as things come into being, or seem to come into being, as they appear and disappear, and as they communicate as they do that, there is great love in that. There is great heart. It could break your heart. It could make you cry. It's the beauty of this world and how moving it is. And that is the third body of the Buddha, the compassion body of the Buddha, they call it. Now, the compassion body of the Buddha has, it's also called the manifestation body of the Buddha. So there are two ways that this manifests, this body, as enlightened and as unenlightened sentient beings. When it manifests as enlightened sentient beings, they are individuals who have taken birth deliberately out of compassion for unenlightened beings. And I think of it like this. A teacher dies and is reborn, like Trungpa Rinpoche, he was the 11th in his line, right? The Karmapa, the current Karmapa is the 17th in his line. The Dalai Lama is the 14th. That it's as though they were engaged in a loving, love-making conversation with us. And they passed, it was their time to die, but they come back to keep the conversation going. Out of love, out of that ongoing compassion, heart, you call it, which is the third body of the Buddha. Now, we are also that third body of the Buddha. We're manifestation bodies of the Buddha. And if we're unenlightened, then we're just unenlightened versions of that. And if we're enlightened, well, then we're enlightened versions of that. Enlightened just means we've woken up to our true nature, which is not I and other, it's not existent, it's this world of Shunyata. So in a way, there really aren't any unenlightened beings. They're just beings who think they're unenlightened and are stuck in that, trapped in that conviction. So these are the three bodies of the Buddha. There's an essay that I wrote. It's not my ideas. What happened was that some years ago, Naropa and the University of Colorado were doing something together. And I got a call from a person who was teaching at both institutions, asking me about, you see, when Trungpa Rinpoche first came to Boulder, he was invited by 4 professors at the University of Colorado. And they got him to teach a course. And I was a TA for him. I was a teaching assistant. You know, I got everybody seated and handed out the pencils and that kind of stuff. And one day he gave a lecture on the three bodies of the Buddha. And so these people who were doing this celebration, they asked me to describe something of that teaching that when he taught at that class. So I wrote up this article on his teaching on the three bodies of the Buddha, which I've just described to you. And it was really beautiful. It's been published in a bunch of places. You can find it online. It's called, what's it called? So many people keep giving it different titles.
Something in the single diagram or?
Yeah, it says, I'll send it out to you in the next email.
It is just about 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I can just follow up, the communication that you were talking about, doesn't that imply an I and another?
No. Now this is communication. Everything is communicating constantly. The fact that you can hear these words, the fact that you can see the color of the different squares on your computer screen, the fact that you can feel your bottom in the chair now that I mention it, all of this is the communication and more, much more.
Okay. Thank you.
Lodro had a question, right?
Yes, Lojo is the third person.
I'm wondering if there is time for the question. It's 9 p.m., so you let me know.
Okay, go ahead. We'll just make it, I'll make the.
Also, Don also, so.
Yeah, but I think we were going to have the discussion group tomorrow.
Yeah, I can ask it another time.
Thanks, Don. Want people to go home and go to bed.
Thank you for the beautiful presentation, John. My question is regarding the 75 dharmas, the elements of existence. I've gone through the list. I really like how anger and hatred are actually separate, labeled as separate. But the more that I go through the whole list and the elements of defilement, I can't seem to find anything that resembles sadness in here. And I've tried to negotiate with myself. I've tried to say maybe it's under an umbrella term, maybe like ignorance, or perhaps like affliction. But my counter argument to that would be, well, many of them could be affliction. I feel drowsiness can be an affliction. I feel lust can be an affliction. But none of them seem to communicate the very stagnant and very depressive nature of sadness and grief. So my question was, is sadness not a part of the 75 dharmas? Is it perhaps under an umbrella term that I could not understand, or any words that you could share on that?
Sure. First of all, after the Buddha's death, the Sangha fractured and people disagreed about what he had taught. And it was called the period from about the time of the Buddha's death, which was in, 560 BC to somewhere around 250. There were what's called the period of the 18 schools. So there were 18 different schools. Each one of them had a different list of dharmas. And this is the list of a particular school called the Sarvastivada school, which was a school that lived in northern India, and it went to China, it went to Tibet, it went to a lot of places. The other main school that survived was the Theravada school. That was actually it was called the Slaviravada, and it went south into Ceylon, where Slaviravada means doctrine of the elders. And that was translated into Pali as Theravada. And the Theravada swept through Southeast Asia. There were another 16 schools, so-called. Oh, Shinyi is going to tell us the article on the three bodies of the Buddha. What? Oh, she gives a link. You've got it here in chat. So the thing is this, none of these things actually exist. They are attempts to take our experience and categorize it into things which you think might exist. That's why Steve Goodman, could sit around with a bunch of people like us and come up with our doctrine of how many existence there are. We might have, there's schools that have 100, schools that have 89. We might come up with, 52, and we label them each according to our inclinations of deciding what is central, what is core. It's just an arbitrary list of things that we happen to think are the most essential of all. So don't worry about the fact that there's no sadness in this particular list. This is just the Sarvastivada list. Maybe they were really happy people. Who knows? So it's all arbitrary, these lists, and these things don't actually exist. It's just that particular group's attempt to categorize everything. Steve Goodman used to come up with all kinds of lists with different groups of people. Well, friends, we ought to end. And so let's end with the dedication of merit. I also want to say this very quickly. I'm available to discuss your practice. I can think of nothing more important, depending on your inclination. If you want to, contact me and we'll find a time. Okay, here we go. Barry, can you put it up? Oh, I think I've got it here. Or is this? Nope. Wait a minute. Once again, we got to try to find the right thing. Yes, this will be the right thing eventually. Here we go. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rignans' wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.
See
Everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
See y'all next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone. Wow.
Thank you all for urging me to come. I'm really glad I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
great. Great, Alex.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lodro, for your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, really, Lodro, it was good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a beautiful night.
Yep, you too.
Bye, Peter. Bye, Robert.
Yep. Bye, Deborah.